From an epic two-player duel to an incredible upset and an instant classic, the NBA on Christmas Day just saved the league.
I love the NFL, but Christmas is our day.
I was going to do these games in order, however, I have to start here. LeBron James and Steph Curry just handed us another instant classic as these two superstars went back and forth, giving us a top 5 game of the season so far. LeBron put up 31 points, 10 assists, 2 steals, and a block on 55% shooting, while Steph matched that with a 38-point game on 58% shooting. In the first quarter, it appeared that the momentum was on the side of the Golden State Warriors, but they weren't able to push out a lead, allowing the Lakers to stay in the game. From there, the Lakers springboarded a great 2 quarters where they outscored the Warriors by 8 points over the second and third terms, leading by as many as 11 points late in the third. And even though the momentum appeared to be shifting back into the Warriors' favor to start the fourth quarter, it was LA who appeared to have all the answers and were about to put the game on ice. But then Steph Curry happened, as he went ballistic down the stretch of this game, at one point leading the Warriors to a 7-0 run in under a minute, and over the whole end of the game they'd go on a 13-4 run where Steph just made tough shot after tough shot as the two legends were going band for band. The shot where Curry was fading out of bounds had me out of my seat, and I felt like the Austin Reeves game winner wasn't what I was hoping this game would end with, but credit to Reeves as he had one of the best games of his career, putting up 26 points, 10 rebounds, and 10 assists on 40% shooting, as he basically gave the Lakers a bit of everything. This was my favorite game of the night, as the last minute of this game was pure cinema, and the whole time I was just so grateful for this game, because there's no way of telling how many times we're going to be able to see LeBron and Steph play at this level against one another. But where the night of festivities really started was at the world's most famous arena, Madison Square Garden. The NBA's potential future GOAT and one of the most exciting teams in the league right now were going head to head. Coming into the night, this was the game I was the most excited for, and it absolutely did not disappoint, as Wemby edged his name into NBA history by recording a ridiculous stat line of 42 points, 18 rebounds, and 4 blocks on 51% shooting, becoming the 3rd highest scorer in that debut on Christmas Day ever, only behind Tracy McGrady and Wilt Chamberlain. But then when you factor in the 18 boards and the 4 ejections, Wemby has more than just an argument for the greatest Christmas debut in the history of the league. The NBA truly has a Victor Wembanyama problem, but despite his heroics, the Knicks would win this game behind a 41-point explosion from Mikal Bridges, who continued to make timely shot after timely shot down the stretch of the game, handing New York the home win. And with the Celtics also losing on this night, the top of the Eastern Conference just got a lot tighter, but we'll get into that more deeply later in the video. But for New York, it was more than just Mikal Bridges, as even though Jalen Brunson shot just 7 of 23 from the field for just 20 points, he still managed to dish out 9 assists, while Josh Hart was doing Josh Hart things, putting up 12 points, 12 rebounds, and 6 assists, along with 2 steals on 50% shooting. And down the stretch of this game, he came up with 2 massive plays, grabbing back-to-back crucial offensive rebounds, which sealed the deal in favor of the Knicks. This game was big time for the league, as the casual fan finally got to witness one of these monster Victor Wembanyama games, and for it to come on the first game of the night, this hooked everybody for a long night of pure cinema. Game 2 of the night took us to Dallas, Texas, where the Minnesota Timberwolves were taking on the Dallas Mavericks in a rematch of the West Finals. But even though this had been a bit of a one-sided rivalry over the last couple of meetings, it was the Timberwolves that jumped on the Mavs early. And to make matters even worse for Dallas, Luka went down with a non-contact lower leg injury, which looked to be serious as he exited the game and did not return. Reports surfaced that he left the arena on crutches. The Mavericks organization is gearing for an extended period without their superstar. But even when Luka exited the game, the Wolves were still up on them, as led by their defense, Minnesota opened up a 28-point lead. It became apparent that Kyrie Irving was going to have to be the guy to stand up in this game, and even though he started making shots, the Wolves were still pushing out the lead. But all of a sudden, that all changed, as Irving had a second half for the ages, putting up 26 points on 60 54% shooting in that second half to get the Mavericks to within 2 points down the stretch. However, after a missed three by Kai and a big-time Anthony Edwards bucket, the Wolves would end their 3-game losing streak, knocking off their biggest nemesis on Christmas Day. Randall and Edwards combined for 49 points, while I thought Dante DiVincenzo finally had a game that he was advertised to give them every night, as he had 11 points with 3 made triples, along with good perimeter defense. But that final quarter from Minnesota showed me why I'm still so concerned about this team moving forward, as it looked like they completely stopped offensively. Now, last season, Minnesota's offense was not their strong suit either, ranking in the bottom half of the NBA for offensive rating. But on this season, it's gotten even worse, as they currently rank 24th worst for offensive rating. Anthony Edwards had some pretty startling comments talking about how they have absolutely no identity on offense, which is not something you expect to hear from a team that just made the Western Conference Finals. But what makes it even worse is how their offense is not getting any better, and if anything, it's getting worse. Over their last 10 games heading into tonight, it had been a struggle to even get to 100 points. And even in a game where they had 90 points to start the fourth, they barely made it across the finish line, scoring just 15 points in the final term, allowing the Mavericks to go on a 39-13 run to close the game, where they were very fortunate not to lose it. But what's won them plenty of games over this stretch is the fact that they're finally getting back to that elite level defense that won them so many games last season. Over these last 10 games, they were holding teams to just 99.8 points per game, which would easily rank as the best defense in the NBA by a long shot. However, it's not the 60s anymore, as you can't win championships with the league's best defense while also having the league's worst offense. As in the modern NBA, offense is a lot more important, as I believe Minnesota need to find a way to get their offensive game to at least the top half of the NBA before I consider them real title contenders. But the third game was hosted by the title defenders, as the Boston Celtics played host to the Philadelphia 76ers. After a dreadful start to the season, where the Sixers opened up 4 of 13, they've now won 8 out of their last 11, including this shock win over Boston. The Celtics have now lost back-to-back games for the first time since April of last season, and I'll get to them more deeply in a second, but let's first talk about the winning side. We finally got to see what the vision for this Philadelphia team looked like when they made the trade of Paul George in this game. Even though PG did not shoot the ball well, and has struggled to shoot it well all season, I thought his individual defense was very impactful. Just think about how good this big three is going to be when he starts making shots. To make matters even better for the Sixers, Embiid was back, and after a scare in the warm-ups where he tweaked his ankle, he still looked great out on the court, giving the 76ers 27 points, 9 rebounds, and 2 assists on 53% shooting. But the stars of the show for Philadelphia were Tyrese Maxey and Caleb Martin, as Maxey put up 33 points, 12 assists, and 3 steals, along with a block on 52% shooting, while Caleb Martin, who's been nicknamed the Boston Strangler by Embiid, had another stellar performance against the Celtics, putting up 23 points, making 7 of 9 from downtown after struggling with his shot all season up until this point. But back to Tyrese Maxey. He was outstanding all through this game, and what really stood out to me is how much trust the Sixers have in him. For long stretches of the game, Nick Nurse just had Maxey out there by himself, which allowed George and Embiid to rest on the bench, and in those minutes they had great success. Toward the end of the third and for the first half of the fourth, Nick Nurse just ran Maxey, and in that time the 76ers dominated, going on a 27-8 run, getting buckets at ease, and holding the Celtics to just 4 points in 5 minutes with the lineup of Maxey, RJ, Lowry, Martin, and Yavu. This 8-minute stretch basically summed up the game, as they kept one of the best offenses in the NBA in check, completely dominating on both sides of the ball. But now let's look at it from the Boston Celtics standpoint. Right now they're going through a rough patch, but I don't believe there's anything to be worried about. To get back to playing their elite basketball, I really don't think it's going to take that many changes. The main change that I think they need to make is just being a little bit better with their shot selection. And what I mean by that is making actual reads on the perimeter instead of just jacking up a 3 if you have any kind of daylight. In transition or semi-transition, I'd be perfectly happy for the Celtics to keep hoisting up these threes. Too many times over the first 3.5 quarters of this game, the Celtics were just casually walking into contested threes instead of creating open looks off drives or post entries where the opponent has to send a double. This is where they get defenses into rotation, and I thought they didn't do a good enough job of getting the Sixers into these situations anywhere near as as much as they should have. But I do credit Joe Mazzulla for making an in-game adjustment, which nearly saw them make a comeback. The adjustment was clear in that last half of the fourth, as Boston started to attack the paint with the same level of consistency that they've been attacking their three-point shots with. And the result was getting back to a one-possession game, embarking on a 15-3 run, which was nearly enough to win the game. Overall, I'm absolutely not concerned about the Celtics at all, as this game was more about showing us that Philadelphia have finally arrived, as they picked up their best win of the season. And this brings us to the final game of the night, which was still a banger, but it was clearly the worst out of the five. The Suns got hot early, and Jokic was trying to keep pace by himself, but it didn't work, as turnovers really hurt Denver in this game, along with not being able to buy a three-point shot, as this led to one of Jokic's worst games of the season, which was still 25 points, 15 rebounds, and 2 assists on 52% shooting. But when we look at the Phoenix side of things, Bradley Beal was able to step up into Booker's shoes and do just fine, putting up 27 points on 52% shooting, while Kevin Durant also gave the Suns 27 points, but it was on a much worse 35% shooting. Both defenses did well to keep up with each other, but the difference came with Phoenix being smart with the basketball in hand, only recording 7 turnovers to Denver's 16. Even though Phoenix only scored 6 second chance points off of the 16 Denver turnovers, it didn't really matter, as Denver would still end up with 10 less field goal attempts than the Suns, which led to a 10-point loss. I think both teams have some real issues that they have to work through, but directly following this win, I'm looking forward to seeing if Phoenix can build upon this win. This was one of the best Christmas days the NBA has had in a very long time, and my personal favourite game of the night was definitely the Lakers versus Warriors matchup. But what was yours? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below.